Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and today going to be looking at some recent Chelsea news, Chelsea players returning to training, and also some contract extensions that I think are very important to touch on as well. But before we get into any of that, as you know by now, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Regular videos about Chelsea FC on this channel. Also hit that like button, do me a favor, and it helps out the videos as well if you're enjoying the content. But let's get into it. Firstly, Chelsea players have returned to Cobham to start training. It's phase one, as they're calling it, of training for Premier League players. As I said in a recent video, for it to go to full contact, that's going to be phase two, and then eventually getting back on the pitch and playing games. It's a way away at the moment, but just to go into what happened yesterday, it was non-contact training in groups of between 3 and 5 players that were all kept apart. Players had to arrive in their own training kits and only had 15 minutes for any treatment before they had to leave, meaning the maximum time they could spend at the training ground was only 75 minutes. And as you can see, some of the photos that came out from players that were released by Chelsea's Twitter account, very interesting. Some of the new looks we saw from players, mostly all down to no barbers being open. You know, football players usually get their haircuts like every 2 weeks, but we saw mostly, I think the biggest takeaway for me was N'Golo Kante with hair. Clearly he wasn't able to get to a barber's or wasn't able to cut his hair himself, so he now has hair, which is a strange look, to be honest. I wonder if he'll keep that look for the rest of the season. And also Jorginho looking like Daniel Bryan from WWE, that was incredible for me as well. And Kepa had some wild hair, a bit like myself, a bit like I'm sure all of you guys, struggling with not having any haircuts at the moment. But those were interesting, and it's just good to see the players back. Of course, we've had conflicting feelings about the Premier League returning. I guess just at a base level, it's good that these players are back on the training pitch, getting back to some sort of fitness. It was one of the things I pointed out yesterday, that I think one of the benefits to Chelsea is a lot of our injured players are now going to be fit for when the Premier League does restart, if it does restart. Pulisic, Kante I think is a prime example. He hasn't been fit regularly throughout the majority of this season, and maybe this break could be the thing that helps him get back to that peak physical fitness, which would be brilliant for Chelsea. It really would. Christian Pulisic, HUDSON-ODOI, Tammy Abraham, you know, players that were injured before the break, and hopefully they can get back to full fitness now. And of course you saw some of the regulars like Dave, Barkley, Rudiger, players that were playing before football suspended. So as I say, it's just about a waiting game now. We've heard some comments from Frank Lampard about this and how it's going to work. I think it's just going to come down to the direction from the Premier League of when we do go to full contact, because this is very basic training at the moment, social distance training. But then when they do move to full contact, I feel like that's when the wheels will start rolling and we'll feel like we're getting closer to football being back on the pitch. But just something to touch on, interesting. Let me know your opinions on not only players being back to training, but also some of the new looks from players and hairstyles. So let me know in the comments below. And the other news story is about contract extensions, because yesterday we found out through Matt Law of the Telegraph that Willy Caballero has signed a 1-year contract extension at Chelsea. Chelsea have triggered their option to extend Caballero's contract by a year. The 38-year-old's deal was due to expire at the end of next month, but as was the case with Olivier Giroud, Chelsea have secured a 12-month extension. The move to extend the contracts of Caballero and Giroud are not based solely on the impact of the crisis, but they offer the club greater security over the future of their squad, with the season set to run well past June the 30th. It also means Chelsea now only have Willian and Pedro approaching the end of their contracts and potentially needing to agree temporary extensions to the end of the season. Frank Lampard gave some quotes about this contract extension and players running out of contract. I'll just give you now. The ones out of contract here have been great servants for the club and actually have a lot of feeling for the club, but of course they will be concerned about themselves in terms of how they are. If pre-season is rushed, they'll want to make sure they're okay. So it's going to have to be something we look at. Hopefully we can have that arrangement so they can stay with us, because if we play again, I would love the squad to look as it's looked all season, but we'll have to see how that works. Very sensible quotes from Lampard, and I think extending the contracts not only of Olivier Giroud, which I've talked about before on the channel, but of Willy Caballero, which is the new news about this, I think is very sensible. I think it really is. I've made videos before that I think that potentially Chelsea need a new backup keeper, but because of the uncertainty around football at the moment, I think it's very smart for Chelsea to secure as many players as they can, especially those running out of contract, because we did have quite a few, and this sort of alleviates the stress a bit. Now with Willian and Pedro, we're not really sure. Willian, of course, we talked a lot about with his demands for a 3-year contract. In terms of just a short extension for Chelsea to have those players for the rest of the Premier League season when it does restart, we're not sure. sure. We're not sure how that's going to work. Hopefully that can be fixed, because I think Willian and Pedro could be key figures for at least the remaining couple of games for Chelsea, even if they are to then leave after that. But I think Caballero, he's a good head to have in the dressing room. He's good for a penalty shootout, as we've seen before, and he stepped in well for Kepa when Frank Lampard needed him earlier in the season. So I think it's just a decent move. You know, Chelsea, I'm sure, and Lampard, I'm sure, will be looking at other options, as we've seen before. Andre Onana, we've talked about Ben Foster on this channel before, but you have to understand the circumstances we're in, and I think just keeping a hold of your players is very smart. It's not only good certainty for the club, but good certainty for those players as well, who I'm sure are a little bit sort of uncertain in the current time as well. So those are my opinions. Please let me know your opinions on the contract extension, not only for Willy Caballero, but for Olivier Giroud, in the comments below. But that is it for today's video, guys. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.